Hi guys, Dory here from D Squared Consulting. I'm going off topic a little bit this week. Instead of presenting a specific clinical topic, I want to talk about just learning in general and how important it is to provide really good and thorough clinical education in the medical device industry. It's not the kind of thing that you can learn on the fly only. You really have to have some type of formal education on the clinical topic that you're going to be working with. And so I've been thinking a lot lately, having attended a few virtual conferences, about the concept of static versus dynamic learning. And I find that old-fashioned chalkboard teaching can be really effective when you're talking about clinical topics. And that's because you're talking about topics that are in no way static. I mean, you think about physiology, even anatomy, there's so many moving parts. So it's really hard to just display a PowerPoint with, a static image and understand exactly what's going on. So I wanted to show you how I create some of my videos and talk about how we can maybe do better in the future on presenting clinical information. So during my time as a field clinical engineer and product manager, I did a lot of clinical education, and for the most part that was in-person education, which is very different, and often I would use a physical device or PowerPoint slides to present the information. But nowadays with virtual learning and virtual conferences, I think it's really important to go a step beyond PowerPoint and present things in a more dynamic way if you're not able to speak directly to the people that you are trying to educate. So for my classroom series, I just use an iPad, nothing too complex, and an app called Procreate, which is really meant for artists and graphic designers, but it allows you to create images and words on the screen, and it does take a time-lapse video automatically of everything that you're creating. So you can download that time-lapse and then use that to present information, which I think would be a really cool way to do clinical education in the days of virtual learning. So to show you guys an example, I'm going to insert an image onto the screen, and this is something that I just pulled from the internet, and it's an example of what's called a Kaplan Meier curve, which is something that's pretty commonly used in clinical studies. And what this is showing is the survival rates of heart failure patients in different groups. In this case, ejection fraction and gender are what's being compared, and what the survival rates of that particular group are over time. And this is really important information, but if you were viewing this on a screen and it was only up for 30 seconds, you might not have the time to fully digest what was being presented there. And so I'm going to show you a different way that we can do that. So first I'm going to create a new layer so that I can draw on top of the image without altering the image itself. And I'm going to use a bright color so that you can see what I'm doing. First, I'll just point out the X and Y axis is survival function versus days. So basically survival of these patients over time. And I'll use that red marker to highlight the line that shows an ejection fraction less than or equal to 30%. So as time goes on, their chances of survival drop significantly in this cohort of patients. If we were to look at the patients with an ejection fraction between 30 and 45%, I'll use blue to highlight that, you'll see that their survival looks much better over time. So just being above 30 has a significant impact. Now, interestingly, if you look at the patients with an ejection fraction over 45%, which you think would be best, I'm going to highlight this in yellow, you'll see that it tracks pretty closely with the blue line, but then does have a drop-off at the end, which might suggest that those patients that don't have some kind of intervention because of the low ejection fraction may actually do worse over time. And then I've added in, as an extra image, the source of the image that I've pulled up here, just so that you can see where this particular graph came from. So there you have it, a pretty uncomplicated method for presenting this clinical data in a more dynamic manner.